Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's session. Today we have Wordsworth's program information session. I'm so glad that you all could be here today. I'm sure all of you have different kinds of questions. You may be in different like frames of mind. You might have different ideas of where you're at with choosing your programs. I recognize some students know exactly what program they're interested, what kind of program combination they want, while others might still be exploring. And I just want to emphasize, no matter what stage you're at, this is a great session to be in just to help inform your decisions. So my name is Meredith. I'm one of the academic advisors here at Wordsworth College. I'm here with Duran, Karen, Winnie, and Anna. We all work at Wordsworth College Registrar Office, and we're all here. We're all academic advisors and work within the registrar office, and we can all answer your questions. So some of you might know the registrar office quite well. Some of you may not have ever had an appointment with an academic advisor. So let me take a quick moment just to introduce, remind you all or introduce you to us. So the registrar office, we're always here to answer any questions that you might have. It can be about programs, it can be about courses, it could be about fees. It could be really about anything because we know like being in school, so much a part of our lives do impact our courses. So if you ever wanted to, if there's something that you are interested in, maybe you want to talk about research or ASIP, which is the Arts and Science Internship Program, or maybe you're interested in mentorship programs or whatever the case, we can point, either we know the information or we can point you to the right people. So don't ever hesitate. I think one really key thing I learned when I was a student was just asking the question is the way you get the answers. So if you ever have questions, I hope you feel empowered to ask those questions. So along the same lines, I just want to take a moment to show you the virtual registrar office. This is where you all already have access to it in Quirkus. Some of you might have already I'll view you as a student. Our frames kind of look a little bit different. Yours would look like this. There's information about how to book an appointment, all kinds of stuff. But if for some reason you have to leave this session midway through, maybe, I don't know, a class, I don't really know. But in whatever case, or maybe you want to go over things again, just know that this session will be recorded and it will be here. Recording will be listed here in the virtual registrar's office, okay? More information, like I'll email you all on Monday, just so you have it all available to you. So you know that it's there. But without further, oh, actually, you know what? I think I have one more slide about advising appointments. This is our contact information. The appointment link is right there. How this will go is we'll keep things pretty broad. I'll talk probably about 45 minutes, to be honest. So I hope you sit back, relax, but also if you have questions along the way, mark them down. There will be a point where you're going to be able to ask your questions. When we ask the questions, you're more than welcome to you're welcome to ask any question. It's just if it starts getting really specific, like let's say you're asking about program enrollment requirements for a specific program, we're probably going to ask you to email us and then we can take it offline because we want to keep it general and whatnot. But still, feel free to ask your questions. And if you ever want to meet with us one-on-one, we have advising appointments. We're here Monday to Friday, 10 to 12:30, 1:30 to 4. Okay. So so yeah, you guys were excellent. In the registration emails for all those that registered for this, I mean, it's open to anyone to join, but for those who did, I really do appreciate you submitting some of your questions, and they were really excellent. So here are some of the questions. My goal is throughout the session is to touch on all these throughout, but if there's something that comes up and you're like, Meredith, you didn't actually answer this one question, let me know. And let me know in the Q&A session. We can certainly make sure. So let's go over it. So when are the deadlines? When do we hear back? We certainly will cover that. Someone asked, changing programs after second year or not meeting program requirements yet. I'm glad you asked that because a lot of us might have maybe we found a program, maybe Faculty of Arts and Science is so big, has so many programs, and maybe we found the program that we really want to study. What happens in that case when you don't have the program enrollment requirements? So we'll talk about that. Someone asked, how do you enroll into philosophy specialist program? Another person asked, how do you enroll into programs if you're taking program requirements in the summer? Again, great question. We'll answer that too. I'm really glad someone asked about ASIP. Someone asked, is applying to ASIP versus other programs separate? So this person wants to do a financial economics specialist. How do I apply for, apply for an eco major now? I'm glad you asked that question. I think this is an excellent example. So I've actually included this one in with one of our scenarios. So we'll certainly talk about that. Someone asked, I want to ask about the cognitive science program and deadlines for it. What happens if I don't meet the 70% needed? We'll talk about that. Is sociology an open program? Long story short, I'll say no, it's not. It is limited. I know that on the top of my head, but what I'll do in this session is show you how you can find that out. Questions about program requirements, how to identify if a course is count towards a major or not. I think that's a helpful question about enrollment requirements versus completion requirements. So we'll look at about the academic calendar. Where can I find the program options on Acorn? Oh, that was duplicated. Okay, right on. So what that is, I think, is just how do we actually go about like applying for programs in Acorn? And then lastly, I understand that you can apply to limited programs in any year, but is it possible to never be accepted into a program? And that's a really good question too, because again, long story short, yeah, like it is possible you may not get into a program. And in this session, what I hope we learn is just like what happens when we don't get into a program that we want to enroll into. Oh, okay, thanks. So what happens in that case? And so part of being in these sessions with academic advisors, we can go through all kinds, because sometimes it is different pathways get you to different programs, but sometimes it's about pivoting and changing, and we can go over that as well. Okay, so before we get into all that, I like to just talk about why. Why do we need to choose programs? And so the first thing I like to remind students is that it's part of the degree requirements. So let me show you quickly the degree requirements. So this is for Honors Bachelor of Arts, Honors Bachelor of Science. It's the same for Bachelor of Commerce, but you need a program set of programs. So it's one specialist or two majors or a major and two minors. So it's set right within the degree requirements. So that is one reason why we need to. The second reason is actually because the minimum program combination is required to choose in order for you to choose courses for second year. So in July, if there's anything you get from this presentation, this is the one that there's a lot I hope you get from this presentation, but this is key. If you want to choose courses for second year in July, you need to have a specialist or two majors or a major and two minors in Acorn. Otherwise, Acorn will block you. So keep that in mind. If you're not able to get into your limited programs by July, you need to find a placeholder program, okay? So that's another reason. And that's if you're on track to complete 4 credits. Some of us might be doing program or courses on a part-time basis. We may not be getting 4 credits at the end of this year, and that's okay. In that case, you don't need a program. It's once you achieve 4 credits, if you're on track, okay? So in that case, you need programs. Our last one is to get priority for fall winter courses in your program. So an example is, let's say you are in the criminology major, and there's a specific criminology 200 level course that you want in. Majors and specialists will have access to that specific course over other students in other programs because it's part of your program requirements. So if you want priority access to those courses, being in the program is very helpful. Okay. So again, continuing on that conversation about what is a program, sometimes it's nice to talk about what exactly is the difference between specialist, major, and minor. And so at the end of the day, I think the big distinction is the number of credits. A lot of students ask me, and I think ask a lot of academic advisors, like, what is the best one? What is the most useful? What will get me into grad school? What will lead me to a career? Really, I think there is no best option. It's really what works best for you. So a specialist, for instance, it's anywhere from 10 to 14 credits. So a reminder is that degree requirements say that you need 20 credits to graduate. So if you're doing a specialist and it requires 12 credits, that means 12 out of the 20 are within that specific subject area. So that's a large proportion of your degree in a specific area. So if that sounds exciting to you, maybe you like learning a lot about one particular area, maybe like cell and molecular bio, I don't know, maybe that's what you really love, then maybe a specialist might be a good idea. A major, for instance, can range anywhere from 6 to 8 credits. So if you're doing 2 majors, that means you're going to take 2 programs and cover a considerable amount of your degree in 2 different areas and get to know really 2 different areas really well. And then minors are always 4 credits. So in that case, you would probably be doing a major and 2 minors. And what's wonderful about that is that maybe you're the type of person that really likes to see how different disciplines interact with each other. Maybe you like learning about the context of it. So in that case, major and 2 minors works for you. It really is about what supports your academic goals and what also allows for interests. A big thing, again, just remember that minimum program combination. We've talked a lot about it, but I like to just make it very clear. 1 specialist or 2 majors or a major and 2 minors. And I like to draw attention to that little asterisk for 2 majors or a major and 2 minors. And that's because in the degree requirements, it does say that if you have combined like programs that are combined, you need 12 distinct credits between that. So you might notice, let's say you're taking cognitive science and psychology, and there is I'm just pulling it out of my head, like on top of mine. Maybe there's considerable amount of overlap between those 2 programs. I don't know, but if there is, that doesn't mean you get to take less courses for your programs. You still need 12 distinct credits. So that really ensures that you're not doing too many courses that are overlapping between 2 programs. So if you have questions, that's a question that we can always go over in an appointment. Okay. So what is a program? Then there's the fact that we're talking about, well, a program can be open or it can be limited. So an open program, really, again, remember, in order to choose courses, you need to have 4 credits or on track to complete 4 credits. And so for open programs, all you need is that completion of 4 credits. And as long as you have it, you're automatically enrolled. Limited programs are a little bit different. They still require that completion of 4 credits, but they have additional requirements, and they can be, maybe you need specific courses, or maybe you have specific courses that you need to take with specific grades in those courses, or maybe you need to achieve higher than what is listed on the academic calendar to be competitive. Maybe there's special requirements like a supplementary application. It could be an interview or an essay. All that information is in the academic calendar, so that's why that's where it's a good place to go and check this information. But through this, I'll show you exactly how to do that. So a lot of you asked, how do we, when, the deadlines, when do we hear back? So this is pulled from the Sydney Smith Program Toolbox, and this kind of outlines what the dates are. So for open, it starts with that. You'll notice that there's no application needed. And you just enroll anytime after March 2nd to September 21st. Throughout that time, you just enroll into a program and you're automatically enrolled for open programs. For limited programs, you'll notice there's 2 different request periods. There's the first and the second request period. So the first request period, you apply in March and April, you find out kind of end of April to beginning of June, and you enroll by July. So one thing I like to highlight about this, it's ideal if you've completed your program enrollment requirements, you should apply during the first request period, because you'll notice you enroll into your program by July, which is just in time for course enrollment. So that way you know what your programs are as before you enroll into second-year courses or courses for next year. Also, but So really the big distinguishing factor between the request periods is that first request period looks at fall and winter courses. While second request period, it gives the opportunity, like let's say you're in a situation, I think someone asked like, what happens if I have to take summer courses? And um, and I apply then, can I apply this year? Well, yes, you can. Well, I'll explain a little bit more, but the second request period is for that situation because it looks at fall, winter, and summer. The thing I like to note here is that not all programs allow for a second request period. So that's something to keep in mind. So let me take a moment and let's flip to the program toolbox. So again, important dates is actually exactly where I pulled this information from. But let's say someone is interested in criminology and they didn't take, maybe they didn't fulfill the program enrollment requirements for that. We go to list of programs here. And I find this a really helpful tool just to get a really nice bird's eye view of the program. And it says here, criminology, major, it's limited and it allows for first request period only. Okay, so in that case, this program does not allow for enrollment during the second request period. So in that case, you would actually need to apply next year. So that's another thing that's helpful to keep in mind is that this program window does open every year. It allows you to switch your mind, change your mind, switch programs, which is excellent. But at the same time, like keep in mind that as we move into upper years, it becomes a little bit more difficult to degree plan if we're switching in your third or fourth year. There are ways to do it. It's just there might be a situation where you may have to extend it into like a fifth year or further. But usually, like I think that might be a situation where if you want to explore that option, make an appointment with an academic advisor and we can explore that with you and just highlight any of those factors that might be part of that conversation. So I hope that's helpful. There was the other thing I like to highlight with the second request period is the fact that you notice that you're enrolling into this program at the end of possibly September. So if that's the case, you might be changing courses, like you'll enroll in July, but if your programs change, you might be changing your course enrollment for fall once you're enrolled into your program. So there's a bit of unknowns with the second request period. So we're talking a lot about limited programs. With that, first, what I'll do is I'll just highlight the things. If you're considering a limited program, what kind of things you should be looking at. So if you find a limited program, find out if it allows for both request periods or if it's first request period only. So that's helpful. Secondly, find out if there's courses that you need to complete for that limited program, if it's minimum grade or variable minimum grade, because that can change. If it says minimum grade, that gives us a little bit more information. That means all you have to do is achieve the grades listed and you can, then that indicates that you should be accepted into the program. But if it's a variable minimum, that means the grade threshold changes every year and it's all dependent on the number of spots available in the program and the number of people applying. So sometimes you might have to achieve the grade higher than what's listed in the academic calendar. So the terminology matters. Also, watch out for or keep an eye on, sometimes there's different requirements based on the admission category that you're in or the number of credits completed. So that's important to keep an eye on. Supplemental application, this doesn't show up a lot, but again, it can. So Rotman Commerce and Computer Science are the ones top of mind for me that I know of, but there might be others. So it's good to check that out. And collaborative life science programs. If you're someone who has taken, maybe you are in the maybe you're taking life science courses and maybe you're considering life science programs, I would say it's really good to double check whether or not the program you're looking at is collaborative life science program. Those programs are a select number of programs, and I'll show you the list in a few minutes, of programs that are made in administered in collaboration with the Faculty of Medicine. For those programs, you can only apply to the maximum of 6. So that's important. Also, you still apply within these timelines of you still enroll in the first request period, March 2nd to April 24th, but you actually receive admission decisions in like still within this, but within a different timeline. So for instance, this is for collaborative life science only, but in the first request period, there's 3 different iteration periods. So you could find out in the last 2 weeks of May, the first 2 weeks of June, or end of June into July. And so what that means, like an example, let's say you're interested, like on top of mine, I know immunology, I think, is a collaborative life science program. If you get an acceptance, like let's say March 21st, then you got acceptance in this iteration period and you need to accept it by May 28th or it expires. And it follows suit with that. Again, a reminder to those not in the collaborative life science program, yours would follow this. This is just specific to collaborative life science program. And in addition to that, while we're here, how to apply to programs. Collaborative life science also has specific combinations that you must abide by. So for instance, I mean, if it's not listed here, then you're good to go. But like, again, that immunology specialist, it can't be combined with a biochem major or a biophysics specialist in the immunology stream or molecular. So if you're looking at collaborative life science programs, take a look at this list, see if yours is mentioned, and make note if it can't be combined with specific ones, okay? So this is the Sydney Smith Commons. This is one where you can actually go and find, this is the list of collaborative life science programs. And this is for the ones in first request period only. These are the ones that allow for first and second, okay? So hopefully that made sense. Again, if you have any questions, we can go over that later, or we can have an appointment. We can go over that as well. Also, we have a program planning worksheet. Like I understand, like this is a few things that you have to keep in mind. So we made a program planning worksheet that you can work your way through. The other thing I like to note here, just take a moment and pause, is that we talk a lot about limited programs. And in my conversations with students, the impression I get is that limited programs are seen to be competitive, and the more competitive they are, it kind of signals to someone that they're excellent because they're hard to get in. I just want to take a moment and just highlight that we have excellent open programs as well. A reminder that we're at U of T. There are so many different options. We have excellent faculty in all kinds of disciplines. Just because the program is limited doesn't necessarily always mean that it's better. And it might be better for you because it fits within all your academic goals and what you're trying to achieve. But there are really excellent open programs. So I hope that open programs are part of the conversation for you or part of your consideration because, like I said, there's some really awesome, and sometimes open programs, like a program might be limited, and I'm not saying it for all these cases, but it might be limited because it's small, and there might be limited spaces, which means that if there's a bigger demand than there's spaces for, of course they're going to be limited. But an example is English. English could be just as excellent. I'm going to say it's excellent. But it's bigger and it allows for more people because it's a bigger program. So that might be one reason why it's open versus limited. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing your programs. So you'll notice we'll go into some examples. I tried my best to include some of the questions that people asked. So we'll start with philosophy. And the reason why I like to start with philosophy is because it's open. So there's the specialists. So right now we're in the academic calendar. To find it, you click on program areas, and that's where I was here. And I just click on P to get to philosophy again. There we go. So if we go to a major, it outlines the enrollment requirements and the completion requirements. So right now for this particular exercise, we're looking at enrollment requirements. It says that it's open. So that means that even if you didn't take Philosophy 100, you could technically enroll into this program. Of course, it's ideal to try the program try some courses first to see if you like it. But of course, you could enroll, if you have a pretty good idea that you would like philosophy, you certainly can enroll into this. And there's no mission requirement. Program enrollment requirements. And then once you're in the program, you would follow the requirements listed in the completion. And what's nice, it also tells you how many credits are in that program. I think the person who submitted the question was looking at philosophy specialist. And you'll notice that the big difference here is also probably like there's different courses that you need to take, but there's 10 credits versus 7. And again, still it's open enrollment. So that one, once you get to March, you'll be able to enroll into this program pretty easily. I think another one I wanted to, let's see. Let's go to economics. So economics is also quite nice to dive into because this one, it says that so right now I'm in the major. It's limited, so that's nice to know. But this one says completed with minimum grade. So this is an example of that technicality piece. So this means that you need to take an eco component and a math component. So if you take eco 101 and 102 together, which is what you would need, or eco 105, these are the grades that you would need to achieve to get enrollment into your program. Same with math, okay? Now, I think the person that submitted this, the question was looking at the financial economics specialist. And again, this is such a great example, and I'm so glad you asked, because you might notice that these have like 200 level courses. And if we look, so again, it's completed with minimum grades, limited, but if we actually click on this, this means that you have Eco 101 and 102 as prerequisites. I also want to note that you need a specific grade in them to take this course. But through looking at the prerequisite, looking at the courses, what this tells me is that you actually need to take these 200 level courses first and apply at the end of your second year, or apply at the end of the session, which you complete these courses for. So in your case, if you're this person that's looking at this, you would certainly enroll into the economics major first, and you would select another major or 2 minors, and then you would take these courses in your second year. And when the program enrollment window opens up during 2027, then you would apply for the specialist in the first request period of that session. I hope that's helpful. Now, I think the other one that I wanted, let's take a moment. Okay, psychology. So psychology, I like to look at because this one, you'll notice this one is where, so we're at the enrollment requirements. It says it's limited, but it says variable minimum grade or minimum grade average. So what that signals to me, it's different than economics. That means that the minimum grade that you need to enroll into this program changes every year. So it's nice because they say that a 75% is listed here, but really because it's variable minimum grade, we know that changes variable means change, right? So that means every single year it changes based on the number of spots available in the program and the number of people apply. What's also nice about psychology is that they also signal to us that in past admission cycles, it's been approximately 78 and 79. This one also is interesting, one, because it includes grade 12 bio and calculus. So if you're considering that, make sure that you have those requirements. But it has different requirements based on the number of credits. And what that means is that depending on where you are in your degree, whether or not you're applying maybe in your first year or at the end of your second year, there's different requirements. So if you're between 4 and 8.5 credits, you'd be looking at this one. But if you're looking, like maybe you're at the end of, maybe you're midway through your program, your degree, and you're thinking about switching into psychology, then you would have, psychology would change, Psych 100 would change to passing grade. Those grade 12 requirements would still remain, but you have additional requirements, including a stats. So Psych 201, I think, is a stats statistics 1, so you have that one along with 1 credit at the 200 level. So that's just some things to keep in mind. The last one I wanted, just for the sake of this scenario, I like to look at computer science, because this is a good example of one where the requirements change based on the admission requirements. So again, limited. But for students who are in the computer science admission category, they have completed with minimum grades. So that means all they need, well, that means what they need to do is complete these courses and achieve these grades. For students outside of the admission category here for computer science, there's a special requirement. So this is an example of one where a supplementary application is required. It also has variable minimum grades. So then again, it changes. Like we don't know what the grade threshold is. It does say to be successful, applicants with grades lower than 70 will not be considered. So that means 70 is just to be considered, not necessarily the grade that admits you into the program. And then the courses that you need to take change. So if I remember correctly, there was someone who was interested in sociology. I just want to highlight, oh no, criminology. Cognitive science. I forget. I think it's cognitive science. I think someone was asking about cognitive science and not achieving the 70%. I just want to highlight here that for that one, it's variable minimum grade. So if you're not achieving the 70%, you certainly can still apply. Maybe talk to us here at like in an academic advising appointment. We can explore like what other options you have. But it is good to always, and I'm not saying this just because of the grade component, but you do need, it says with a minimum grade of 70%, it's quite possible that it might be a variable minimum grade, meaning you might need, it says to ensure students admitted to the program, applicants with a grade average lower than 70 will not be considered. Please note that obtaining this minimum grade of 70 does not guarantee admission. So in that case, I think it is really helpful to talk to us. We can explore different options, but also like whether or not you're the person who's looking at this program or other programs, consider all kinds of options. Like at this point, we are at a point where we're applying. We don't necessarily need to know exactly what we're going to do. So apply to as many programs as you want, unless you're the collaborative life science. In that case, you have a maximum of 6 in that select few, but outside of it, you can apply to a bunch. And then depending on what results you get in, you can create your combination based on the decisions that you get, okay? I hope that's clear. Again, if you have questions about this, mark them down and save them for the Q&A, and we can certainly go into that. So now I just like to go over the different resources. So where do you find information? We've been looking at the academic calendar. So the academic calendar is the key point. And I think from the exercise that I presented, I hope what's coming clear is you do need to look through it in the academic calendar. If you want, in order for you to understand what exactly is expected of you, you do need to find out what the enrollment requirements are and read through this in its totality so that there's just no surprises for you. So I would certainly encourage that. And then take a look at the completion requirements as well, because that lets you know what courses that you need to take in future years. Program toolkit, we also looked at that. That's where we looked at the program enrollment dates. There's actually instructions on how to apply to programs. So actually, I'll take a moment to show you exactly where that is. Information on the collaborative life science, and there's that full list of programs that let you know if it's open versus limited and allows for first versus second request period. And then finally, the academic unit website is super helpful. So what I mean by that is like the department or academic unit that sponsors the program, they might have really helpful information as well. So I can't guarantee it will for every single department, but on top of mind, I know criminology is an example. So if you go to the undergraduate and then program admission, they have a whole FAQ system about applying to this specific program. Is there a waiting list? What was the cutoff in previous years? Again, not all departments do this, but you can check to see if yours does. The other thing to check is look at the contact us. If under like this one, for instance, you can actually book an appointment with the advising portal. So if you have a specific question about the program enrollment requirements for a specific program you're into, you can email them, you can call them, and if the availability is to meet with advising staff, you can book an appointment. Oh, I think I was going to go over how to find information on how enrolling into programs is super easy. It's actually very similar to enrolling into courses. So it has the list here. So open, essentially, it's very similar. You go into Acorn, you click on enroll and manage, but instead of courses, you click program and you find the program code. Oh, first you click add a program and then find the program code. So for psychology, the program code is here. So you would just copy and paste that. And then for open, it just says active right away. For limited, it'll say requested, and then you'll just wait for notice on whether or not you have been admitted or not. Yeah, invited or refused, okay? So we talked about the program toolbook. So now, to add on to this conversation, there's these things called focuses and certificates. And some of you may be aware of this, some of you may not. I think a big thing about this is just remember that these are not the same. They don't work towards the minimum program combination. You still need a special, if you're interested in a certificate, you still need a specialist or 2 majors or a major and 2 minors on top of the certificate. That's the same with focus, okay? So a focus is allows for concentration in a certain area within your program. So it's embedded within a program. So I gave the example of cell and molecular bio. Let's see if I can pull that up. So we'll go to program areas, cell and molecular bio. So I think it's in cells. Yep. So there's majors. But then underneath it says focus in molecular networks of the cell, plant, genomic. I'm really not, you might be able to tell I'm not into science. I hope but yeah, in biotech, my pronunciation, basically. Focus on stem cells and development biology. So there's these focuses. So if that's something that you're interested in, maybe you're really interested in stem cells and development biology, you would enroll into the major first, and then you would select the focus. And so what you would do is that in completing these specific courses, they would also work within your major. So you can, they're basically embedded within. Certificate. So this is a little bit different. It's not within your program requirements. It operates outside. So it's intended to provide structure to electives. It's around 2 to 3 credits. So if you choose a program set and you have quite a bit of elective space available, you might be interested in a certificate. And so there's a bunch of different examples. Again, what I'll do is I'll show you where to find this information. So we'll scroll to the top and we'll click program and certificates. And there's the search and then there's type. If you're interested in looking at the focuses, these are all the different focuses that you could be interested in. Like there's one on game design. Of course, you need to be in computer science first, but I mean, that's something I didn't know. But for certificates, there's Black Canadian Studies, Business Fundamentals, German language, along with Portuguese, Spanish. There's the Psychology of Economics and Management, Sustainability, International Affairs, Global Latin America. Yeah, so if you're interested in that, these can be, a certificate can be added on top of your program. So key thing, neither focuses and certificates are things that you can most certainly can include in your degree planning, but just remember neither contributes to the minimum program combination. All right, we're nearing the end. So please stay with me. Again, make note of any questions that you have, but before we get into that, I do think it's important to just flag that we do have some deregulated fee programs. So this is not the case for all students. It's for students who are considering Rotman Commerce, computer science, data science, or bioinformatics and computational biology. Those are considered deregulated fee programs. And the reason is because right now we're paying a Faculty of Arts and Science tuition, but once you're in these programs, the price point of the cost of the tuition will be higher. So if you're considering these, I think the financial component is something to definitely research on. And I have a QR code that directs you to a page within the Faculty of Arts and Science that allows you to read more about it. Okay. So I'll pause there. And just remember, if you need any of this information, email us or watch a recording and we can send this information to you too. We can talk about it in more detail. Again, all questions are good. And talking about questions, okay, before we open it up for questions, I like to just summarize some of the most common questions. So hopefully I went into a lot of the questions that we talked about, but if not, this might be where they pop up. So a question is, what if I haven't completed 4 credits yet? And so in this conversation, this is a completely good, this is a good question. Like some of us might be doing courses on a part-time basis. We might be working full-time or part-time. We might have different capacities, or maybe we're just not in a place where we are doing full-time studies, and that's totally cool. And in that case, my question would just be, when do you expect to complete that 4th credit? So whenever that's the case, that's when you would enroll into the program. So an example is, maybe you're in a situation where maybe you're on track to complete 3 credits or 3.5. One option is you could take courses in the summer and then enroll into open programs once you achieve that, or you could apply in the second request period. But if you think that you might be completing the 4th credit next year, then you would apply in the 2027 program enrollment window. A similar but different question is, what if I haven't completed the enrollment requirements for a program yet? So we talked a little bit about this, but it's similar. Like the question is, when do you expect to complete those enrollment requirements? If you want, you could take, if the courses are offered and the program allows for second enrollment request period, you could take courses in the summer and apply in the second request period. But maybe just remember, summers are optional. Maybe you would prefer to not take courses in the summer. In that case, you would take the courses next year and enroll the following in 2027. If that's the case, though, whatever in this situation, I think a big thing to keep in mind is remembering that key piece of information that I said, where you need to have, if you're on track to completing 4 credits by the end of this winter session, but you don't have program enrollment requirements and you plan on applying next year, remember that key piece that said you need a minimum program combination satisfied in order to enroll into second-year courses. So what that means is in July, if you're not in the program that you want, then you would need to find a placeholder program. And that way you can choose courses for next year. How many programs can I apply for? So we kind of touched on this. I think collaborative life science programs. So again, remember there's a maximum of 6 programs for those select group of programs. But outside of that, you can apply to as many as you want. I like to think of it as kind of like going through another application period. You applied for universities. You applied to the ones you really wanted, the ones that you were maybe excited to go to, but maybe wasn't your first choice. Maybe you had some other universities that you were thinking of. Once you got the decisions, that's where you made the decisions. So it's kind of a similar situation. Apply to as many programs as you want. Find the ones that you're really excited for, the ones that you'd be okay with, and then some alternate programs as well. And then when you get the decisions, you can piece them together. So, can I add more programs than the minimum program combination? So the answer to that is yes. So let's remember that all you need for your degree is 1 specialist or 2 majors or 1 major and 2 minors. But if you want to enroll into maybe you're in 2 majors and you really like this 1 minor, you can add that additional minor. You can add up to 3, even though it may not be required, but 1 has to be a minor if you're doing 3. The other thing I want to go back to this placeholder program. Again, if any of that was confusing, let us know. I think it's really important for us to clarify it so that you're not stuck in July, not trying to figure out why you can't enroll into your program courses. But if, let's say you're interested in a specific program and at least it's a science program, it's ideal to find a program that is at least within the science to choose your, that is another science program that works towards Bachelor of Science. If it's a placeholder program, similarly, if it's an arts program that you want to get into, find another arts program. That way, in whatever the situation you're at the very least, still going for a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science. And then in this conversation about programs, just remember that you can get a Bachelor of Science and do a combination between arts and science. It depends if you, again, it's good to check with us exactly what that combination would look like. But keep yourself open if you're one of those people that really like a combination of both arts and science, that might be like that. Chances are it is a possibility. It might require some creativity. But that's something we can go over as well. Question here, what if I have transfer credits? So in this case, what I would say, so this might be the case where you might have AP credits, CAPE, IB, or you might have credits from UTM, UTSC, or another institution altogether. In that case, I would really clarify with the department to make sure that your transfer credits work towards program enrollment requirements. I wouldn't make any assumptions because it might be the case where that department would require you to take the St. George version or the University of Toronto version of that same requirement. So gaining clarification directly from the academic unit or department is very helpful in this case. And then lastly, what if I don't get into my program? And that sounds like that one is, I think it is important to sit with that and really think about it because it's the reality. Like there's a lot of programs here that are limited. What happens if you don't get into it? And in that case, I would do some reflecting, is it the kind of thing where you try again, or do you, or do you pivot and do you change your direction? Sometimes pivoting does open up new opportunities for you to explore, and you might be surprised by what you find. But if you choose, like one thing is you could apply again, but before doing that, I would talk to the department and really gain clarification of why you got refused. Maybe maybe you received a lower grade than what was required for a department. Figuring out what that grade threshold is will give you an idea of whether or not it's a good idea maybe to retake that course. And if you retake the course, then like talk to an academic advisor and we can maybe do some program planning. The other thing is remember that you may not be able to enroll into that program until end of summer or at the end of next year, if that's the case. And that's quite a while away. So it's good to think, will I want to enroll into a program at the end of second year? You might, but you might not be interested by that point, or maybe things might change, or maybe you might. So in that case, like plan for, I guess the big thing is reflect, book an appointment with an academic advisor, but also be open to other options as well, both limited and open, okay? Just because you might be surprised by what you find along the way. We've talked a lot about when to meet with an academic advisor. Here's some other reasons, like anything about program and course planning. Maybe you found a program and like, for instance, there's so many programs and there might be something really cool that you found. You might even, some students change programs in their third or fourth year. It is possible. It's just, again, meet with an academic advisor first. But if you find a program you really want, we can find out whether or not your courses allow for a smooth transition. So again, talking to an advisor is helpful. And then also, if you're planning on applying to a program at the end of year 2, I think, with that said, I think it is helpful to have your programs in place and secured by your third year. I think that is the best, as early as possible. But if you're looking at programs and applying at the end of year 2, I think it's good for us to just talk about like what courses are you going to take. You kind of have to be strategic about it because you might be enrolling into courses that for programs you're not into, and that there's risk associated with that. So we need to talk about that. Okay, we're almost there, I promise. We'll still make time for Q&A, but just some tips for choosing programs. Research your program. Consider your academic goals. For instance, a lot of students enroll in criminology because they want to be lawyers. My big question there is that criminology program stated in the admission requirements of law school? For that, my recommendation, research it. Find out if it is, because chances are there's lots of different programs that work towards it. So finding out what your academic goal is, researching it, and finding what allows you to get where you want to be is really helpful with programs. Evaluate your strengths. Pay attention to the courses that you're interested in. What courses you enjoyed, because usually when you're naturally curious and you enjoy it, I mean, you're going to be spending the next few years in this one specific program. Make sure you enjoy it and that it allows you to be curious. It opens up to opportunities. And I think looking at upper year courses is super helpful because that might give you an indication of whether or not you're interested. And lastly, talking to upper year students, gaining their perspective, it can be helpful. And if you're not sure, maybe you don't know very many upper year students, you can sometimes talk to them in your department. But if you're in a situation where you don't know very many people who are in their upper year, then I say join us next Thursday. This is not the Thursday, no, not next Thursday. We're on reading week next week, right? So, but it's the week following. Thursday, February 26th, 11 to 12. It's online. It's going to be different. There's no presentation. It just allows you to ask your questions. And then upper year students will tell you like their experience with choosing programs, what led them to their decisions, and what they maybe wish they knew, how they would, and just like what influenced their decisions. So the registration is there. If you're not able to go to this QR code right now, again, the recording, I'll make sure there's links, but in the email that I sent on Monday, more information will be sent about this then. Program exploration days. There is February 25th, 26th, there's going to be a department expo. You certainly will be able to go around and learn what departments are available and talk to faculty and students, but there's also going to be opportunities to learn about research or internships or global learning experiences there. So checking that out on February 25th and 26th. And lastly, someone asked about ASIP. ASIP is, it's called Arts and Science Internship Program. I like to note this because some of us may not know about this. Really, this is an opportunity to combine paid term work terms with professional development within your degree. You apply either at the end of year 2 or year 3, usually year 2. So you apply for programs first, depending on first, second request period. But then in June is when it usually starts the application. So the big thing here is that the eligibility on whether or not you can enroll in ASIP depends on programs. Not all programs have that ASIP component, so you'll have to find out whether or not yours does. All right, so with that, don't worry, we're still going to have a moment for Q&A. But for those who are watching the recording, I just want to say, well, actually all of you, whether or not you're watching the recording or you're here live, thank you for attending. We're here for any questions that you may have. Just email wdwregistrar@utoronto.ca.